What's up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of the ShowMeFootball.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Fan, and today I'm joined by Connor, as always. And today we are going to be previewing Missouri versus Kentucky, week 2 of the college football season for your Missouri Tigers. And really, Connor, and I'm sure you agree, this is probably it's arguably the most important game on the schedule because what happens in this Kentucky game is going to tell us a lot about what happens for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think it'll really set a tone, but the schedule gets a lot easier from here until Texas A&M. But still, this is a game that you really want to win.
Yeah, you beat Kentucky last year, so you want to keep the momentum going on Missouri side because remember in the Odom years, they lost to Kentucky all 4 years, and they lost the last 5 in a row before Drinkwitz won last year. So Kentucky's been really good at beating us in football, which should never have been the case to begin with. So we need to start to change the culture. That Mizzou moniker that Drink has been pushing, it applies here. You want to beat Kentucky. Mizzou should be better than Kentucky. Now, Drinkwitz, he still needs time to build this team to where Kentucky should be, no issue. They're a respectable opponent, and what Mark Stoops has done with that program over the years is very impressive because Kentucky is a respectable opponent, but still, this should be a game that Missouri is favored in annually, and we're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, we really should beat Kentucky. Like, it's honestly an issue that we aren't consistently favored against them. And I would really like to get to the point where we can consistently kick the crap out of them. But yeah, we're just not there at this point. And I was optimistic initially about the team's chances, but just like listening to Drink's press conferences and everything, it doesn't sound like the expectation with the team is that we're going to win this game.
Honestly, I think that's just coach speak. Like, I think what Drinkwitz is doing when he says this team isn't ready for Kentucky is he is kind of resetting expectations for this team while at the same time sending a message to his players and to Kentucky, and maybe he's trying to give the impression that Mizzou doesn't feel too good about themselves heading into this game, and he wants to get the Wildcats riled up in a way where they come into this kind of overlooking Missouri a little bit. That's kind of how I took it, but I think we do need to acknowledge that people are acting like Kentucky all of a sudden is like a top 2 team in the SEC East. Like, they're a decent team that can throw now with Will Levis at quarterback, but they won their first game 45-10, but that was against Louisiana Monroe, and we cannot understate how horrible Louisiana Monroe is. Like, CMU, Central Michigan, like, they're a respectable opponent. I said it in our last podcast. Jacob Sermon, he's a damn good quarterback. They have some NFL talent on that CMU team. They're very well coached. Like, that game that Missouri played, that was an understandable game. It was the first week of the season, new defense. There was a lot of kinks to work out. And then you have Kentucky, who played Louisiana Monroe, who went 0-10 last year and is just god awful. And I think people are looking at how these two teams did in their week 1 matchups, and they're kind of applying it to this game here. And people are using the logic, well, if Missouri struggled against this team, then they're not going to be able to beat, Kentucky. And honestly, I've used that logic before in the past, and it has killed me every single time. Never do that, because matchups change from game to game, and teams have different strengths and different weaknesses that can really kill them or that can really help them. And just you can't do that like that. You can't just say, look, here's how Missouri did against Central Michigan. Oh, they're going to get beat up by Kentucky because they're a better team. Like, yes, in theory, Kentucky is a better team, but it doesn't always exactly work out like that.
What's so good about Kentucky? Like, Drink's press conference made it sound like we were about to play Alabama. I don't get it. I don't get why the media and the coaches and everyone is so high on Kentucky. When did Kentucky become a contender?
I mean, like I said, they're a respectable team. And look, they have a good program. They've recruited really well in the line of scrimmage. They have multiple guys on their offensive line that are seen as NFL prospects, such as their left tackle, Rosenthal, and their left guard, or I'm sorry, no, their right tackle, Darian Kennard. He's seen as an NFL prospect. And then, like I said, Will Levis can throw now. And then Chris Rodriguez Jr., their running back, he's coming off a 100-yard game against Louisiana Monroe. So, I mean, people look at that and then they look at how Mizzou struggled to stop the run against Central Michigan. And they did struggle to stop the run, but they just go, oh, well, there you go. That's how Kentucky's going to win the game. They're just going to run Mizzou over. There's nothing Mizzou will be able to do about it. Let's just give it another week. Let's see how they do in this game. Then you can start to really make judgments about this defense. Or really, honestly, you can't even do that because, I mean, it's going to take time. Like, there's going to be games where they look good. There's going to be games where they look bad. So, making a complete judgment about this team after week 1 against Central Michigan just isn't fair. And I think Missouri in practice this week, they're going to emphasize stopping the run, and they're going to, whatever it takes, play guys closer to the line of scrimmage from the defensive backfield, or, they're going to rotate in different defensive linemen differently than what they had last game and see if that works. Like, it's not just going to be like that. And also, we have to talk about how last year, again, 2 different teams, but last year, Missouri totally destroyed Kentucky, ran it like 35 times, just ran it down Kentucky's throats. There was nothing they could do to stop it. And that's how Mizzou won the game. So, I mean, Mizzou, they still have, look, their offensive line didn't perform great in week 1, but rewatching the game, they did get better as the game went on. So if they continue that upward trend into the Kentucky game and they just open up some holes for Tyler Beatty and Elijah Young, I think Tyler Beatty proved to us he can be that bell cow back that Mizzou wants and needs Tyler Beatty to be to replace Larry Roundtree, who was someone that was bigger and you could hand the ball off to, 30, 40 times a game if you really needed to, which they did against Kentucky last year. Tyler Beatty proved that he can do that. And I would try that going into this game until Kentucky proves they can stop it this year.
This game's going to go one of 2 ways. Either one, Missouri is going to be pissed that they played Central Michigan that close, and Drink's coach speak is going to pay off, even though I'm kind of questioning the effectiveness and just the tone of his voice. Like, to me, if you're trying to fire someone up, it would be like, I think of that clip of Saban and Muschamp on the LSU sideline. Like, I think they were up like 35 and he's sitting there screaming at the defenders. Like, that's more what I think of when I think of coach speak, trying to hype your team up by telling them they're trash, not just saying like, yeah, we suck, Kentucky's going to win, so we could prepare more than Kentucky. And like you said, Kentucky beat the crap out of a terrible ULM team. And, that's going to go to their heads because these are college kids. We see them be emotional all the time. It's probably going to go to their head. And it's going to be up to Stoops to keep them level-headed and prepared for Missouri. But if they are level-headed and prepared for Missouri, I think they completely dominate us on the line of scrimmage. Like, there's nothing that the new D-line Zoo has done to inspire confidence so far. So
hold on, let's slow down for just a second, because yes, they looked horrible in run defense. I will not disagree with you there, but they did rush the passer pretty well against Central Michigan. I don't know how that's going to translate against Kentucky, but they did have 9 sacks as a team against Central Michigan. So, 3.5 came from Blaze Aldridge. So if you want to kind of include that, you can. If not, I understand. Maybe you want to see more from the defensive line in particular, but I did want to throw that in there.
If your pressure production comes from blitzing, that's not really attributed to your defensive line.
And Steve Wilkes, he did mention that in practice that, they ideally want to get pressure with 4.
It's just a matter of getting it or not. Are we talented or developed enough to get there when Kentucky has multiple? I think it's like 3 NFL prospects on their line. So yeah, if
Yeah,
Kentucky
I
wins
mean
the game,
it's multiple. So
I've heard stuff about their left tackle, left guard, and right tackle. But if Kentucky's going to win the game, it's going to be because they came in level-headed and prepared, and they're just probably going to run the ball down our throats and just completely dominate us at the line of scrimmage. But one aspect that I don't know how big of a deal it's going to be, but I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see. This is, I believe, going to be Drink's first road SEC game with a full crowd.
right.
So I'm curious, like, how that's going to work out considering they've never dealt with that before. I know that he's said they've practiced a little differently and their approach has been a little bit different going into it. So I'm just kind of curious as to see what changes in the approach. I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. You know, no one's really scared to go down to Kroger Field, but it will be interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah, I mean, and while we're on the topic of defense, I guess we'll just kind of start there. The or I'm sorry, yeah, the Missouri defense versus the Kentucky offense. I mean, they mentioned it on the broadcast several times. Trajan Jeffcoat is probably this team's best pass rusher on the D line, but they need someone to step up besides him. I don't know who that person is going to be. Kobe Whiteside, there was that one in Jordan Elliott's last year before he went to the NFL. Kobe Whiteside, when he played next to him, had like 7 or 8 sacks, looked really good. Since then, he has not been the same player. Uh, Isaiah McGuire looked good in that CMU game, but I mean, those were just flashes. Can he be a full-time starting defensive end that can give you 6 or 7 sacks this year? I don't know. Maybe one of the other D tackles step up. I'm wondering where the rest of the pass rush is going to come from on the D line.
I know Makai Wingo looked pretty good
Yeah,
against
no, he
CMU.
did. And he's a true freshman and he's kind of considered undersized too. So the fact that he's made his way to playing significant snaps in his first game as a true freshman, I think that, speaks to how good he can be.
I think we're going to see a lot of rotation on the defensive line. Drink said in his press conference that he didn't play as many players as he wanted to against CMU.
Yeah.
And he said that the reason that Wingo was in for so much of the game was because a lot of the big guys got winded, and he was one of them that was still good to go towards the end of the game. So that's
Well,
why you saw him play a lot, and he played pretty well too.
and that's the thing that I'm optimistic for regarding the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't want to get too off topic here, but 2 guys in the Kansas City Chiefs, Tershawn Wharton and Colin Saunders, they're both kind of in that Makai Wingo boat. And Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo talked about using those guys in the same way that I think Drink is trying to say about Makai Wingo is Jerron Reed and like Chris Jones or Derek Nottie, whoever, they're going to be your starters at defensive tackle for the Chiefs, right? Well, they are really good, but you want a second unit that, is athletic and, hungry and juiced up after those guys are in there. And those offensive linemen that are tired from going up against guys like Chris Jones all day are going to have to end up going up against quick twitch guys like Colin Saunders or Sean Wharton, who, it's going to be hell for those offensive linemen to handle that much athleticism. And Makai Wingo's kind of a guy like that too. Like you said, referencing Drink, he said he was one of those guys that was ready to go, and he is a quick twitch, really good athlete for a defensive tackle. So if he can be that kind of guy in year one, that's going to be huge for the defensive line and their development.
When has Colin Saunders showed that much potential?
Well, he looked good in preseason. Like I said, I don't want to get too off topic because I was really critical of that draft pick, but giving credit where credit is due, he did look really good in the preseason. So
I feel like I missed something because last time I remember us talking about Colin Saunders, we were saying he wasn't going to make the team.
Oh, I know. I think that's how I viewed it going into training camp, but coming out with preseason done, I'm really impressed with what he's done. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold my breath on that, but
Well, let's not get too deep into talking Chiefs defensive linemen before we bring up you know who in an episode that has nothing to do with them.
oh god.
So
He's everywhere now that TJ Watt got his big contract extension too, and that number just pisses me off.
yep. Yeah, because he's right there being paid with him. We're not going to mention his name though. If you know, you know, but we're going to move on. Linebackers for this game, I still expect it to be Devin Nicholson and Blaze Aldridge. And if you actually look at the snap counts from last game, those guys basically played 99% of all the linebacker snaps, which kind of concerns me. Like if you're that uncomfortable with your linebacker depth that you couldn't play anyone else besides Blaze Aldridge and Devin Nicholson against CMU, that's concerning because what if one of those guys gets hurt? Then you're basically screwed. So, I mean, they struggled too. They were out of place a lot towards the end of the game, though. At least Blaze Aldridge, he was good at providing pass rush, but kind of concerned about that group.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Blaze is playing well, I'm not really worried about it. Like he just looks like a beast, so I'm not gonna trip too much about it. It kind of reminds me of like the situation that the Chiefs are in right now, where it was Gay and Hitchens, and then outside of that, they don't seem to trust Bolton yet. Dorian O'Daniel hasn't done anything, so we're stuck with Ben Neiman now that Willie Gay's. So I'm kind of used to crappy linebacker depth.
Yeah. Well, and if your offense is good enough, you can get away with it. And we'll talk about the offense in a little bit, but the secondary, honestly, I'm very optimistic about the secondary this game. Now, Kentucky does have some beasts on their offense. I mean, like I said, Chris Rodriguez Jr., their running back, he was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. Was coming off like a 125-yard game, and he had a touchdown in that game too. And then their receivers, Isaiah Epps, he is a burner, and so is Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson transferred to Kentucky from Nebraska, and basically, from what I could gather, Wan'Dale Robinson is basically Kentucky's Mookie Cooper. He's someone that Kentucky really wanted coming out of high school. He's an absolute burner. He can take the top off of defense. Drink mentioned it in his press conference. But he's going to be playing in this game, and he looks to be one of Kentucky's best offensive players this year. And I'm wondering who Mizzou is going to stick on him and how they're going to play that. But like I said, I'm optimistic about the secondary in this game because I thought they showed a lot of promise in that first game. So I thought, I thought Steve Wilkes already showed the impact he has on the secondary. I know Ennis Rakestraw looked lost at times, and whoever it is I'm forgetting also had a few bad moments. Oh yeah, Ish Burdine. But Chris Abrams-Drain looked really good. Martez Manuel, the captain, one of the captains of the team, and probably the captain of that secondary, kind of that defense. He's going to give you good, strong safety play. I really liked what we saw from Jason Carley. He can lay the wood. The team talks about him like he's the next Tyree Gillespie. And then Caleb Evans cemented himself in that last game. I loved what I saw from Caleb Evans, the Tulsa transfer. He had a few PBUs and an interception against CMU. So I'm really optimistic about the secondary, and I think they can hold up pretty well. And Steve Wilkes mentioned that Mizzou played so much man because, if you guys didn't know, Steve Wilkes going into the season said he wanted to play a lot of zone. And then Mizzou primarily played man against CMU, which was, kind of caught everyone off guard. But I think it's because Mizzou realized that they have the guys that can get up in a receiver's face and jam them at the line of scrimmage and be physical like that.
Well, I should hope so. Central Michigan isn't exactly Alabama with their wide receivers out here.
No, but number 88 on their team, I forget his name. He's an NFL prospect, and he's a really good player. So, CMU, they're not a bunch of scrubs. And I want to emphasize that because people act like CMU is a team that Missouri should blow out. Now, I think
they produced Eric Fisher.
Okay, but they produced Sean Murphy Bunting too. I can't help the fact that they produced a mediocre left tackle.
In a shitty corner.
Well, anyways, you were saying.
Am I supposed to be blown away?
they can produce good players. I mean, they are an
Who?
underrated opponent. Like they're
I
a good
cannot think
college
of a
team.
good player that came from CMU.
Just say what you were gonna say.
I can't think of a good one. I forgot what I was gonna say. Only other player I can really think of is Cooper Rush, and he's not very good.
Is that all you have to say about Missouri secondary?
Oh yeah, no. I'm not gonna trip about the passing defense against Kentucky, because despite his struggles, I'm still a big Rakestraw truther based on what I saw early on in this freshman season. There's a lot of potential there. And like you said, Tulsa transfer, Caleb Evans, liked what I saw from him. And Kentucky is never going to be a team that I'm really going to freak out about them throwing the football. Yeah, they did against ULM, but I really don't care. Uh, so I'm not going to be worried about stopping Kentucky's pass offense. It doesn't really concern me.
I think it'll be better this year than it has been in years past, but I don't know if they're at that point yet this early in the season. And we'll have to
be
see.
fair,
We'll have to see
they
how
practically ran a military offense in the past.
Oh yeah, they
Like,
have. No doubt about it. I mean, back when they had Lynn Bowden and Terry Wilson and those guys, I mean, they would run like a primarily Wildcat offense. And they would beat us with it, which is the sad part.
Thanks, Beryl.
Well, I mean, Will Levis, I think he's a pretty good quarterback. Kentucky really likes him, so they're hoping to be more of a pro style offense this year. But we'll have to see if Mizzou gets pressure on him early. How's he going to respond to that? We'll have to see. But I think Mizzou's defense versus Kentucky's offense is going to be a huge factor in this game. Like, obviously, one side of the ball on how a team does is going to be a huge factor in every game, but like I think there's an emphasis on it this time. Like I know Kentucky looked good against Louisiana Monroe, but are they going to look good against better competition? And is Mizzou going to rise to the occasion now that they're not playing an opponent like CMU?
I expect Mizzou to blitz a lot during this game. I expect them to try to get Blaze Aldridge in the quarterback's face, make him uncomfortable, make him make bad reads. And yeah, I feel like that's going to be their plan. And I feel like it'll probably work for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to hope so, because I don't think, if you're getting to a point where you're hoping Mizzou stops the run in this game,
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's like I just don't have a ton of confidence that's how this is going to happen. I think, if you can get to a point where Kentucky is testing you early by trying to pass the ball and you respond by scoring on offense and get Kentucky in a hole, then they'll continue to try to pass to get out of that, in my opinion. And then you can start doing your rushing attack like you did last year and just win the time of possession battle. I think that's the ideal type of game. If you're Missouri, that's kind of what you're hoping happens. But
this is kind of reminding me of when we were talking about the Chiefs playing the Titans. And I'll say the same thing I said then, in the fact that the winner of this game is going to be whoever controls the tempo of the game. So if Kentucky starts running the ball and it's working, Kentucky's going to win. But if we score quickly like we did against Central Michigan and we make them chase us, they're not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, well, at least I hope so, because we're going to talk about the offense now. And something they need to do that they didn't last week is they're going to have to be more efficient.
Stop calling screens on third down.
Yeah, definitely. Play calling has to improve. They need to start going for more chunk plays. They need to keep drives going. They were 1 for 11 on third down last week. That's unacceptable. If you go for one for 11 on third down again this week, you're not winning. In fact, you'll probably get blown out, and you need to connect on more of those big plays. Kentucky, I will admit, I don't know a ton about their defense, but like I said, they rave and their fans rave about how they've recruited against or along the line of scrimmage on both sides. So you can expect the defensive line to be pretty stout. But I do like our receivers against their defensive backs, just because I'm confident in our group of receivers. Toski Dove, we all know that he's reliable. Kiki Chisholm also, he could have a big game at any moment. And then there's really who I think is the X factor in this game. If he's healthy and if he really shows out as opposed to last week, and it's not his fault because he's still hurt. At least he was visibly hurt on my TV screen, and that's Mookie Cooper. And also, we have to acknowledge that was Mookie Cooper's first actual football game in like 3 years. But if he is as advertised and Mizzou can actually get him in space effectively and give him sufficient blocking to where he's not being smothered as soon as he gets the ball, I think he can do damage in this game.
Yeah, I'd like to see something from Mookie Cooper. I find it kind of difficult to believe that he is as good as advertised because sounds like he's really, really good, but I need to see something before I believe it.
Well, here's the thing. And maybe the way that they used him was because of his condition physically. But if you're going to use Mookie Cooper, like use him in the pass game, like, yeah, like they threw them the ball, but it was, on dump offs and, like screen plays and stuff. Like have him run around downfield, have him stretch the field, open up things for other guys. Cause everyone's looking at Mookie Cooper. I guarantee you at practice or in the film room, not even in the film room, cause there's nothing on film with Mookie Cooper in it. Cause he's barely ever played. But I mean, just common sense tells you that Mookie Cooper is going to be this team's deep threat. So, Kentucky's probably game planning for the possibility of Mookie Cooper going deep. So do that and make them respect his presence. They, like I said, last week, they tried to get him in space a bunch and the blocking was just not there. And it was unfair for him because, there was nothing he could do. But use him as a wide receiver this game. Like I want to see him run downfield, have him run a post, have him run a flag, something.
It sounds like Mookie is supposed to be our version of Kadarius Toney, but that's just remains to be seen as of right now. I'm not saying he couldn't be, but
he definitely has the talent. And I know their spring game wasn't really a game, but in the drills that we saw, well, at least I remember them and I watched.
What a miserable experience.
I know, but Mookie Cooper did look really good and he looked really fast. So, they need to utilize that. I know they tried to a little bit in this last game, and obviously a lot of it comes down to health, but hopefully they can get that going. And then Dominic Lovett, the true freshman, he's a burner. Connor Bazelak missed him deep twice last game. One of those, if it was placed a little bit better, would have been a touchdown. Dominic Lovett would have had a touchdown. And then Boo Smith has, really emerged as, a reliable receiver on this team. That's why Drink put him on scholarship. So they got a lot of weapons they can use. And then of course you got Tyler Beatty, who, like I said earlier, I think showed you can be a bell cow back and you can use him like you used Larry Roundtree against Kentucky last year in this game. And we all know Tyler Beatty's faster, more explosive, and probably is a bigger threat to score every time he has the ball as opposed to Larry Roundtree. So Kentucky's got to watch for that. But a lot of this and what I'm saying about the receivers, all that is going to depend on if this offensive line can hold up against Kentucky. Can they give Connor Bazelak enough time to go through his progressions? Can they give him enough time to feel comfortable where he can make a more accurate throw? Because the offensive line, and like I said, if you go back and rewatch the game against CMU, they got better as the game went on, which happened last year a lot too, where they would get pushed around early, but they did get pushed around more than I was comfortable with by the Chippewas.
Yeah, I'm not tripping about the talent on this offense. It ultimately comes down to like the same story as the defense. It comes down to the line of scrimmage, like you were saying. I feel great about the skill position guys. I think Drink's great at recruiting skill position guys, but he's gotten to the point where I'm more excited if I see a guard committed to us than a wide receiver. So yeah,
Which at
I
this
feel like this.
point, you should be pretty happy about because Mizzou's offensive line class, I mean, heck, they just flipped a massive offensive lineman that was recent or formerly committed to Nebraska. So, he is bringing in those bigger guys now in this next recruiting class, which you should be excited for.
Yeah, Luther Burden can suck it. We got to tackle, but
Luther Burton's coming to Mizzou, dude. I don't know why you're so pessimistic.
okay, I'm the pessimist here. But anyway, yeah, I'm just hopeful that this offensive line can hold up, just like you. But I honestly like the offensive talent all over the ball. I like just about every wide receiver we have. And I know a lot of people have gotten iffy on Bazelak, which I'm not on that yet. I think that I honestly really don't see why. Yeah, he missed a couple deep shots, but it's nothing to freak out about yet to me. He still has that poise in the pocket that I always liked from him last year. And as long as he keeps that pocket poise, I'm going to like the guy. And Beatty is nice, dude. Like, I've always been a big fan of Beatty. And like, there were times where, well, I mean, there weren't really times, but I really honestly thought that Beatty was better than Roundtree. And I felt kind of dumb last year with Roundtree really being the bell cow back. But now I feel like he's kind of proving me right because everyone's like, oh, nah, Beatty can't be the bell cow back. But he looked like better than he ever has
Yeah.
against Central Michigan. And I am so excited as a Beatty truther. Like, I am really happy to see what he does this year. And I think it's kind of funny. He's the bell cow back this year. He looks really good, and he's probably going to get drafted if he does as good as I think he will. And he almost transferred to Memphis. Do you remember that?
I remember there were rumors about it. Yes.
I remember seeing all
And
of
then he
that
made a
and
post.
freaking out.
He made like a post on Instagram or Twitter where he recommitted to Missouri, which I didn't know we needed. I didn't know that was a necessary thing nowadays to reaffirm that you're staying at the college that you've been at for a couple of years already. But
I was just so relieved when he did it.
And then also there were times where Elijah Young looked really good last game, and we can't ignore his speed and his potential. He's someone that, if given the opportunity, can break off a long one and completely change the game in a matter of seconds. He's like Tyler Beatty in that aspect. And he did have a touchdown in that last game where he turned on the Jets.
I don't know if you listened to Drink's press conference, but he said that there was somebody on the mic during that, and he said, "Let's give it to Young one more time, and if he doesn't do anything with it, we'll put in another bag." And then he took it to the house. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
That's awesome, and I'm really excited for Elijah Young because I think he could probably beat Beatty in a race. Like, he's super fast.
Maybe the Chiefs should look into that, considering the fact that our lead back has no speed whatsoever.
I don't know why you're talking bad about Jerick McKinnon like that.
RB1, Jerick McKinnon.
Gosh, we incorporate the Chiefs way too much into this, and now non-Chiefs fans who are Mizzou fans listening to this are absolutely going to tune us out. But I mean, I really hope this offense can connect more downfield. That was one of my 3 keys to the game in an article that I have coming out, is connecting on downfield passes. And that's one of the reasons I'm concerned about Connor Bazelak. And I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but like, I'm not saying Connor Bazelak, I'm not saying they need to start Tyler Macon or Brady Cook instead. I'm not saying Connor Bazelak isn't the answer, but I want to see improvement, and I didn't see improvement in the CMU game. It's early on and we'll see what happens, but I want to see him connect on more deep balls and get the chains moving and push the ball downfield, because I know this team is capable of it. I know they are, and they have burners that can get open. So we're not, if we're talking about Mizzou, really struggling like they did against CMU in this game when it comes to keeping drives alive. And if we hear Harrison Mevis' name a lot in this game, Mizzou's not going to win. And I love Harrison Mevis, but Mizzou needs touchdowns. They only had 7 passing touchdowns last year, and that was a big point of emphasis this offseason was this team needs to score more touchdowns. They need to pass for more touchdowns. No more field goals, even though I love Mevis and he's reliable and he's going to make it pretty much every damn time. You need to score touchdowns.
The more and more like time goes on, like I'm starting to see a lot of parallels between this current Mizzou team and like the pre-Mahomes Chiefs. You know,
here we go with another Chiefs reference.
Well, no, it's a fair comparison.
I know.
You know, kind of like your middle of the pack team that's good but not great, and a quarterback that I think is solid and good that a lot of people hate for no reason, and a lot of field goals and not many passing touchdowns. That's just the parallel that I'm drawing between this team right now.
Yeah, you mean like with Alex Smith and that Chiefs team?
Yeah, like Bazelak's kind of taking the Alex role. And
which
kind of like early on and
I don't want to take that for granted either, because he might not give us all the touchdowns that we want to see, but and I mentioned it in the last podcast episode, a lot of teams would kill for that kind of play. Even though Bazelak may not be all that, he definitely could be a lot worse. Like a lot of teams would kill for that kind of quarterback play, especially in the SEC.
He's like top 5 quarterback in the SEC right now. Like I'm not tripping about that.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, talent-wise, I mean, there's a lot of good honestly, there's some overrated quarterbacks in this league. So
Bo Nix.
I knew you were going to say that.
I hate Bo Nix.
Is he the Tom Brady of the SEC?
No. God, you really can't have a Tom Brady of the SEC. The Tom Brady of college football would be like that Oklahoma quarterback that won the Heisman over Eli and Larry Fitzgerald. I can't remember his name.
There's been a lot of OU quarterbacks that won the Heisman, so I'm drawing a blank.
Not over Eli and Larry.
No, but I just don't know what year that was. I don't remember the year.
2003.
Who would that have
been? I was born that year, so I'm not supposed to know the Heisman winner from then.
I really wish I knew.
But yeah, the reason I say that is because he threw 40 touchdowns but didn't get drafted because he has no athleticism because he had
Jason White.
Injuries. Jason White, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no,
I think he even wore 12 too.
18.
Close enough.
I wouldn't. Well, that was, I guess, my poor attempt at incorporating your Tom Brady hate into this podcast episode.
God, I hate him.
And he plays tonight.
Send Micah Parsons on a blitz, light him up.
Okay, yep. All right. So, all that being said,
I could have said so much worse.
I know. I think you're breaking up. No. So, real quick, before we wrap it up, do you have a score prediction for this game? Do you have any big things to watch for, X factors, anything like that?
No, I don't think you can really predict the score for this game because I could see it going a lot of different ways. I could see both offenses completely lighting it up. I could, in the past game, I could see both offenses running the ball all day. I could see both offenses completely stalling. So, no, I don't really have a score prediction. But, yeah, the game's going to be won in the trenches and in time of possession. So that's what you need to watch for.
Well, for the fans, I'll give a score prediction. I'm going to go with Mizzou wins 31-27. I think it'll be a close one, but I think Mizzou will quiet a lot of the doubters. And I know there's a lot of Kentucky fans that are puffing their chest thinking they're going to roll us over. And, that pisses me off. Like, I want to see us beat Kentucky. And I think the players are going to come out wanting to beat Kentucky just as bad as I want them to beat Kentucky. At least I would hope that's the case. So I'm going to go with Mizzou 31-27, Tyler Beatty with another big day on the ground.
It's funny because like half the SEC schools, like I'm cool with, I like Alabama, LSU, Florida. But then there's a couple of those SEC schools that I just despise. I want them kicked out of the conference. And Kentucky's one of them. It's like Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee. I genuinely hate those guys. So, yeah, I want to win this game.
Yeah, me too. But for those of you watching and listening, let us know What are your predictions for this game? Who do you think wins? Let us know in the comments. Would love to hear your guys' score predictions. But that's all I got for today. So we'll catch you guys on the other side of this game. Peace.